Well, my name is Iftikhar Arif, and I'm a General Manager in Information Technology at Muller and Phipps Pakistan Private Limited. We are talking about data. MNP is a leading distribution and courier house in Pakistan. We are the oldest one as well. So just to give you a quick numbers about MNP, that we are into the market since 1912. So we are the oldest company in Pakistan. As far as data is concerned, we are claiming that we are tapping every corner of Pakistan right now. Approx 35 invoices producing on a daily basis with an average of 1.5 million transactions per day. Well, it is really an honor for me to have a word with you all in form of moderating this session. Although I am a regular participant of DataCon event in Karachi, and this is my first appearance in Lahore. Before start proceeding formally, I would like to thank the Scap Talks and Akbar for giving me this opportunity. For DataCon, I would like to start with this that मैं यूं ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल मगर लोग आते गए और कारवां बनता गया. So it is true for Scap Talks and the data as well. So guys, please put your hands together for making this wonderful arrangement for us. Thank you, Akbar. Today we are going to address the topic, the importance of getting people, process, and technology aligned for strong data management. For me, as the world takes huge strides towards technological acceleration, and my favorite word is that, techceleration, through digital connectivity. The digital exposure and the data exposure has now become a new normal. The pandemic has not only accelerated or expedited the business shift towards digitization, but has also helped in involving data and digital in a much more sophisticated manner. If you ask me, data is now, we all talk about the data is a gold. And for me, data is a corporate level asset. And the key differentiator of any organization. So, like Sakeh Sahab said, that data is an oil. So if data is an oil, then bank must be an ExxonMobil for any financial world. Let me start to call our prestigious guest today. It is really an honor to have Mr. Amin Manji Sahab, Head of Tech and Digital, National Bank of Pakistan. Sir, please. Mr. Amin Manji Sahab. Mr. Imran Ashraf, Head of Digital Products and Innovation, Bank of Punjab. Sir, these are the legends. If I would have a choice to give them a brief introduction, 1 घंटा भी कम पड़ेगा. तो आपकी तालियां ये बताएंगी कि सर आपके सामने जो legends आ रहे हैं, उनके लिए हमारे दिल में क्या respect है. Kashif Siddiqui Sahab, Senior Vice President, Governance, Khushhali Bank. Sohail Minhas Sahab, Sales Director, Cinergie Digital. And the Guru, Azim Ullah Khan Sahab, CIO One Lake. हम चाहेंगे कि ये काफ़ी इंटरैक्टिव सेशन रहे. मैं आपको थोड़ा सा पैनल का बता देता हूँ कि I'll ask one comment as a startup for the initial discussion और उसके बाद हम individual questions करेंगे. आप लोगों से जो question answer का session होगा वो इसके बाद हम session के बाद कर रहे होंगे. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. Sir, before wasting any time, it is said that what matter is a data culture. Because data culture is a decision culture. My first question to the entire panel is that, has the banking sector of Pakistan been able to create a data culture? Amin Sahab, starting from you.
Firstly, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on the panel. Thank you for your question and thank you for the audience for your time. अगर इसका जवाब मैं yes करता हूँ तो it may be overstating it. अगर मैं इसका जवाब no करता हूँ तो जिन्होंने किया है या किसी हद तक किया है तो I'll be taking away from them. It's starting. There are pockets where data culture, at least the talk of data and decision making based on data is beginning to appear. और काफ़ी जगह हो रहा होगा and I'm not aware of it. So ये हो रहा है and it's becoming more and more important because of the fast track that we are on to digitalization in banking. And regulators से भी बहुत push है. They are on the front foot in terms of regulations and policies on digitalization in the banking sphere. And banking sphere में दो हैं largely. एक है हमारे traditional banks, commercial, retail, corporate, and दूसरे हैं microfinance banks. So it's a wide spectrum, and I strongly suspect that the level to which the data culture is has progressed is on varying levels. मगर data culture is ever evolving. It's not कि data culture हो गया. इसके साथ और चीज़ें भी होनी होती हैं. But you have to have the data. Digitalization होगी, उससे data बढ़ेगा, उसकी अहमियत बढ़ेगी, and things will move so fast कि जब तक वो data आपको बताएगा नहीं क्या decision करनी है, आप decision ले नहीं सकेंगे. जैसे साकिब साहब ने कहा था about the older generation and the younger generation. जैसे किसी ने his father and his son came back and take it to the next level. So ये एक चीज़ है. That's my answer. But I'll just take a quick digression for 3 seconds and rebuttal to Saqib Saab, who in all good faith said what he did. He's been working with National Bank a lot longer than I have. वहाँ जो change की बात की थी, there's no resistance to change. People want to change. People are looking forward to change. It's how we do it. It's a big organization. It has its uniquenesses, and we are steering an oil tanker to its destination that needs to change. So ऐसा नहीं है कि हमारा resistance है. People are all gung-ho, and we are moving fast on that change path. So sorry for that, but I had to reply to Saqib Saab.
Thank you, sir, for setting up the tone. Over to you.
Thank you. So in my view, data culture is probably the most important aspect of data. So, and probably the most faced challenge that we have today, and specifically in the banking industry and any other organization who is interested in data. So what is data culture? Basically inculcating the use of data in everything that you do in your business. When you're performing your business or you're performing your operation or any other job that you're doing, you start using data at the core of that job. So if your job is to do with the customer satisfaction, your job is to do with conducting a business, or your job is to setting up an operation, you're using all the data relevant for that particular job while making decisions or while settling your customers. Now, where are the challenges in data? So if you want to really bring the data in your culture, it should start from the top. The easiest or fastest way would be that you put a requirement for using data in your job in the performance scorecard of every employee of your company. So that way you are starting to push the data strategy at every level of your organization. In my view, that is a shorter path to taking data towards in the core of your business. Because we have heard number of times data as a terminology or a buzzword, but bringing data at the core of an organization, you need to take tangible steps. And those are the steps that some of the organizations have taken, and now they are using data effectively to create value. Because the whole idea of data is to create value out of the information that you are getting from the sources that you have available with you.
Perfect. So sir, governance is
practically speaking, एक तो इसका academic answer हो सकता है कि yes, governance खुद बात करता है transparency की amongst stakeholders. तो बीइंग पार्ट ऑफ अ बैंक और स्टेक होल्डर, ये कस्टमर का ताल्लुक ही ट्रस्ट से होता है। वो हमारे पास पैसा रखता है, वो हमारे पास गोल्ड रखता है, सब चीज़ें रखता है। तो जब तक एज अ बैंक हम ट्रांसपेरेंसी नहीं रखेंगे डेटा की, तो हाउ कैन वी डू डेटा ड्रिवन गवर्नेंस, नंबर 1। नंबर 2, इट्स ऑल अबाउट इनोवेशन। बैंक बहुत ज़्यादा फोकस है इनोवेशन पे, कोर बैंकिंग, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, क्लाउड एंड सो ऑन सो फोर्थ। तो उसके साथ साथ जब तक डेटा की कंसिस्टेंसी नहीं होगी, ऑफ कोर्स अगेन पार्ट ऑफ गवर्नेंस एज वेल, तो उस वक्त तक हम इस चीज़ को अचीव नहीं कर सकेंगे। एंड देन रिस्क एंड देन बेनिफिट रियलाइजेशन, रिसोर्स ऑप्टिमाइजेशन। तो इसके दोनों बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग पहलू हैं, जहाँ तक एकेडमिक की बात है और जहाँ तक प्रैक्टिकल बात है। तो इसके बगैर ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट हमेशा रहेगा और फिर बिजनेस लेक हो रहा होगा हमारे वजह से। दैट्स इट।
Right. So your perspective about data
I
culture.
think I will take another perspective here. Those gurus are from bank. I'm not. I'm the IT guru. So I'm going to take the other perspective of the whole organization. I think for them, the biggest issue for data has been where to store. Because they have limitations. They need to put it on their own prem. They cannot take it anywhere else. One. The second is that, as the gentleman next to me said, deficiency of trust. The trust has been across the industry as well. So the data needs to be utilized from the customer perspective as well. What a customer gets when he goes to a bank and asks for his deal from any other bank sitting across right out of a center. So then those objectives need to be focused. The third part, which I think Amin Sahab also mentioned, the transformation comes from the management. How they want to see their KPIs driven and what they want to see to give them to the end customer. So these 3 points I think need to be addressed individually and collectively to make a concrete data structure.
Perfect, sir. Sir.
It's a difficult question, I would say. Since we at OneLink are sitting in the center, so we interact with almost all the banks in Pakistan, almost all the fintechs in Pakistan, almost all the billers in Pakistan. I would say people are driving, banks are actually data-driven banks. It's not the case where we can say they are not using any data as such. The only issue is that at what life cycle they are right now to actually get the right set of information for the right set of decision making. Some banks are very good in digitalization and they are insight about their customers, and some banks are still struggling to reach there. So what we have seen so far is that there are smaller banks who used to have a very limited number of branches, but providing a good services to their customers, they have used their data efficiently and reached to the top level and retained that level up to some time. But later on, after some time, the large banks have started to catch up to the smaller ones, and they have also created some sort of a different set of environment which is providing them a lot of edge in the market. So size is already there, but the challenges are also growing, and this challenge is not growing only for the banks, but it's growing for every industry that we talk about. For example, previously banks used to do only the accounting, the transactions, and the ledger management. Now they are providing a lot of channels. They are providing ATMs, they are providing cards, they are providing internet banking, mobile banking. And now people talk about how the customer reacts to a certain mobile application. Is that mobile application providing the right kind of services in a right kind of way to those customers? And is that data which we are gathering from those channels, is that sufficient? And how we are going to use that data to actually further offer more products to these customers. So I would say that banks are in a process of, they are in a journey to achieve to the highest level, but this journey will never end, because once they achieve one kind of milestone, they will have another milestone in front of them. For example, I have recently seen IoT kind of a regulation coming from Visa. It was related to an electric vehicle getting upgraded its horsepower by using a Visa payment. So something like that kind of a payment is not available in Pakistan right now. But if we talk about, let's say, at some point in time this will be needed, the banks, I believe, will take their time, but every bank will have to go to that journey, go through this journey and reach to some level of data which they will be taking to make their decisions.
Perfect. So the arena is already set up. We talk about the data culture, and what I've extracted from your point of view is that to have a data culture in the banking sector, there are two important things: the trust and the access. And today, as the topic described, that we are talking about three things: people, process, and technologies. So my next round started with the individual question. Amin Saab, started from you, that how can a misalignment among the people, process, and technology affect data management in a banking sector? You already described about the data culture in your organization, but let's precise and specific to the people, process, and technologies.
Okay. People, process, and technology is the three pillars that we say. But in a data culture or in the field of data management, we have to see what is the strategy of the organization? What are the goals of the organization? What are they looking to achieve from a data culture or data management or from the data itself? वो अगर clearly shared हो, defined हो, लोगों को समझ आए, then we start working on the other parts. अगर हम सिर्फ people, process and technologies को देखें तो आपके silos में ये सब हो जाएंगी. आपका data will be limited because उस silo में वही data मिलेगा. It will be clean to the level that they require. अगर एक और silo से data चाहिए होगा to enhance it and embellish it and to get even more valuable insights, वो नहीं होगा. There's no question कि people, process and technology are critical, but उसकी foundations हैं कि where does the organization want to go? Where does the organization see itself in terms of how it approaches data and what it wants to do with data? By just coincidence, yesterday, no, it's all public, so I went on Google. I have I'm not using any inside information. I put Pakistan banks, data driven, ye wo. I found one bank, jiski news story thi that they have elected to be data driven, and that's their strategy, that's their goal, that's their vision. One bank. Or ek aur bank hai that said something a little different about technology and banking, but I will discount that. So bunyadi cheezein agar dekhein, it is how does the organization value data? What value does it see in being data centric or data driven? उसकी strategy बनाएं, उसके goals बनाएं, and it's a journey. फिर people, process, technologies होने होंगे, but those are easier to manage than not having that foundation to back them up. And जैसे साकिब साहब ने earlier कहा था, the easiest one out of these is the technology. आप जाकर खरीद लें technology आ गई, जो चाहिए आप ले लें. The second easiest one is process. And the most difficult part of that is people. But once you have the foundation, जो misalignment की बात कर रहे हैं, वो I think it's easier managed than not having that foundation itself. वो आपके बीच में खिचड़ी बन जाएगी, ये वो आप resolve कर सकते हैं when you have a roadmap about where you are going. वो diversions होते रहेंगे, and it's an evolving. You will never reach the destination. And if you reach the destination you had in mind, you realize that that was the wrong destination, we need to go somewhere else. That's how the world works. So it's as was mentioned, it is never ending, and it's ever changing. So that's what I have to say about people, process, and technologies. They are critical and important, but more important than that is having the foundation and the tone from the management being set as this is where we are going to be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 3 years' time. Jo bhi kare.
Right. So you mentioned that these are the 3 key pillars. So when we talk about the data management strategy, does it affect in any banking sector with respect to people, process, technology? क्या तीनों बराबर होंगे इस सेक्टर के लिए?
I'm just thinking about how to answer that.
Because
The data management के लिए, let's suppose, next question is, let's suppose we have a CDO, which means a Chief Digital Officer. वो कितने banks में आज है Chief Digital Officer, right? I don't know होंगे, but I don't know how many हैं. ठीक है. Let's suppose वो हो गया. And then let's say the organization has a data strategy and they like to be data driven. फिर आते हैं उसके ऊपर कि हम data कैसे manage करेंगे across the organization. Smaller institutions, more recent institutions will have an easier time because they don't have that overhead and the debt of legacy to deal with. The bigger and larger, older institutions will have the legacy problem, which is huge if you have that problem. Now in data management, tools and technologies certainly help. But more important than that is the process that underpins what we are going to do, how we're going to do to ensure that the level where we want our organization to be in terms of maturity of how we manage data, how we maintain data, how we utilize data is standardized or to whatever level the organization decides. Jahan tak people are the most important, but they don't have to be technically savvy or data management savvy. You need some individuals or some teams or some specialists within the organizations who are specialized in different aspects of data management. They will set down the procedures and the policies that individuals can follow. And over time that culture changes and they internalize those processes and procedures from a data perspective. वो internalize कर देते हैं. They don't remember the time when this was not in place. So that's
right.
My sum up.
Thank you. We usually said this thing that data is a new oil. But honestly speaking, तेल निकालने के लिए तेल निकल आता है, चाहे वो कहीं भी हो. तो अगर हम, if we relate data with respect to the oil, my next question to Mr. Imran Ashraf Saab, that what are the challenges of data management in a financial institute?
Thank you. So you mentioned data is the new oil, and I also heard data is the new gold. So for any of these two areas, you have to dig a lot. You have to refine it, find it, refine it, process it, find some artist to do something about it and then sell it. So similarly, data is available in every organization in many areas. So the first challenge that you usually have when you talk about making the data useful for yourself is to pick up the data from all those sources which are generating those data. So we call them data sources. Specifically to the banking industry, the data sources are very much scattered. From the historical viewpoint in the banking, the banking was built on verticals. You build a business in a vertical, then you build the next business in a vertical. It's a corporate or SME or consumer business or finance. So all those businesses were built in verticals. Similarly, when the technology came in, they were also built within those verticals. And when the data was being generated in these verticals, they stayed in the verticals. So what I try to bring up is that those data sources are all in silos. Similarly, the ownership of those data sources is also in silos. So this gives you two major challenges. One is that you have many data sources. Some of those are digitized and others are not. For example, core banking system or digital channels or CRM or ERP, those are digital data sources, and then there are non-digital data sources like your branches, which is a big data source, or your relationship managers, who are also gathering data from your customers. So and then there is new data type which is coming from your social media, which are also new types of data. So all these data needs to come in a central place, needs to be processed, needs to be joined, correlated, and be made available for users, which are businesses, operations, and other teams in the bank to be able to draw value out of it. Now, this process is long. It requires some sort of platform. It requires some sort of skill to create an architecture on the platform. Then it requires on top of it to build a visualization layer to give visibility of that data. Some sort of insight creation engine which will start creating insights out of this data. And you can also build few other things like campaign management on top of it, data experience on top of it, and so on. But all this process is cumbersome. It requires investment, it requires time, and by that time, by the time you're able to finish this program, some of the technologies are old and you have to reinvest in it. So all these basically means that to create value, you're taking a long path. Amin have also talked about the data strategy. So you have to pick up the data strategy, you have to create a data architecture, you have to join all these sources, and then you have to start drawing value out of it. So these challenges. If we look at how do we now overcome these challenges, one disruptive approach would be that we start looking at, because we want to create value out of data, so those functions who want to create value out of data should start building in the analysis and insight creation of data from within their teams. And if they start doing it, at least they can start what we usually call low-hanging fruit. They can start creating value quicker than the longer-term approach that you take. So for the organization, there is one long-term approach that they need to take for data. Every organization needs to be ready for data. Some of them are advanced in this journey, even in banks and financial institutions. Smaller the company, later they joined the boat. The newer technology they were able to adopt, and then they are at a better or advanced stage. The older the institution, the previous technologies and the methods and processes they have, so to change those takes time. So two-pronged approach would be best in my view. One is the long-term strategy to become a data-ready organization, and second, to find the low-hanging fruits and start embedding your data analysis in those functions where it matters the most, like business functions and operations functions.
Perfect. जो सीक्वेंस हमने रखी थी उसमें ये था कि जी पहले बैंकर्स, फिर एक हवालदार, टेक्नोलॉजी, और उसके बाद एक रिलेशनशिप बिल्ड करने के लिए एक लिंक है. तो बैंकर्स की डिजिटल स्ट्रैटेजी के बारे में एंड बेनिफिट्स के बारे में और चैलेंजेस के बारे में हमने काफ़ी डिटेल डिस्कस कर दिया. Now my next question to Mr. Kashif. Before that, let me quote somebody's quote that with great powers comes great responsibility. This is my gift, my curse. So I think data can be a blessing and a burden too. और ये गवर्नेंस से अच्छा जवाब इसका कोई नहीं दे सकता, because he is dealing with the blessing and the burden too. So my next question to Mr. Kashif साहब आपसे that how can bank benefit from implementing data governance?
Data governance. असल में एक रूल है ना 80-20 का. अगर आपने 20% मसला सॉल्व कर दिया तो 80% खुद ब खुद बिग रॉक एंड शॉर्ट रॉक की जो बात हो रही है, लिटिल रॉक की ना. मैं
अपॉलॉजीज, मैं आपको हवलदार कह रहा था क्योंकि एक्चुअली मैं अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में गवर्नेंस के लोगों को यही कह रहा हूँ.
कोई मसला नहीं है. असल में बाय डिज़ाइन कुछ चीज़ें प्रैक्टिकली, ऑफ कोर्स इसका एक एकेडमिक आंसर है, एक प्रैक्टिकल आंसर है ना. तो एकेडमिक में तो आपके पास भरा पड़ा है कॉर्पोरेट CGIT, ISO 27001 एंड सो ऑन सो फोर्थ. वो बहुत अच्छी अच्छी बातें कर रहा होता है बट कुछ चीज़ें बाय डिज़ाइन हम अपने इंडस्ट्री में, अपने सेक्टर्स में रिस्पेक्टिव चेंज कर सकते हैं. लाइक इट हैज़ टू बी सेपरेटेड, गवर्नेंस एंड मैनेजमेंट. जो आपका जो आपने जो बैकग्राउंड दिया था इस क्वेश्चन का, अगर ये चीज़ सेपरेट हो जाती है तो ख़ुद ब खुद गवर्नेंस स्ट्रॉन्ग होना शुरू हो जाएगी. तो ये बहुत बड़ा बहुत बड़ा गैप है. दूसरा, कितने लोग यहाँ पे ऐसे होंगे, शायद ही कोई एक आध हो जहाँ पे जिस इदारे में गवर्नेंस हेड ऑफ IT या CIO को रिपोर्ट ना करता हो. अगेन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट. जिस तरह से बाय डिज़ाइन अगर आपने ऑडिट को चेंज कर दिया, ऑडिट नाउ इज़ रिपोर्टिंग टू द बोर्ड ऑडिट कमेटी, तो गवर्नेंस भी इसी तरीके की कोई एक कंडेंस लाइन होनी चाहिए इन टर्म्स ऑफ रिपोर्टिंग कि जिसके बाद ख़ुद ब खुद गवर्नेंस, डेटा ड्रिवन गवर्नेंस, डेटा की गवर्नेंस जो आपने सवाल पूछा वो ख़ुद ब खुद स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट होना शुरू हो जाएगी। देन कम्स व्हाट, देन कम्स ट्रांसपेरेंसी। साकिब साहब ने एक बात की थी कि जब ग्लास डोर आए तो कम्युनिकेशन सिंपल हो गई। ये बहुत बुनियादी चीज़ है जो बाय एंड लार्ज हमारी सोसाइटी में ना होने के बराबर है। एक बॉस है, रूम में बैठा है, नॉक करो, परमिशन लो, फिर जाओ, वो गुस्सा हो जाए, वो प्यार से पेश आए, एंड देन सो ऑन सो फोर्थ। तो ये टोटली अपोजिट 2-3 चीज़ें बाय डिज़ाइन ऐसी हैं कि अगर इस पर काम किया जाए तो ख़ुद ब खुद डेटा की गवर्नेंस, पीपल की गवर्नेंस, प्रोसेस की गवर्नेंस एंड ऑफ कोर्स टेक्नोलॉजी की गवर्नेंस ख़ुद ब खुद नेचुरली आना शुरू हो जाएगी। और इसको मैं करेक्ट करूँगा आपके प्रीवियस सवाल से जो आपने अमीन से पूछा, उसमें पीपल कम्स फर्स्ट ऑलवेज, नंबर 1। नंबर 2, बाय स्टैंडर्ड इट हैज़ टू बी अलाइंड, द बिजनेस IT हैज़ टू बी अलाइंड। अब पीपल पूरे बैंक में, टेक्नोलॉजी IT में, प्रोसेस पूरे बैंक में, तो इसका मतलब नेचुरली ये हुआ कि इट हैज़ टू बी अलाइंड एटलीस्ट बिजनेस, आपका जो बैंक का बिजनेस है, एंड देन IT। अगर ये अलाइनमेंट में कोई चीज़ मिसिंग है तो फिर आप बेहतरीन पीपल ले लें, आप बेहतरीन प्रोसेस ले लें, आप बेहतरीन टेक्नोलॉजी ले लें, कोई ख़ास बेनिफिट होने वाला नहीं है आपका ना। तो बाय डिज़ाइन हिट करना एंड देन नेचुरली फिर आपको रिजल्ट्स आना शुरू होंगे इन टर्म्स ऑफ पीपल गवर्नेंस, प्रोसेस गवर्नेंस, टेक्नोलॉजी गवर्नेंस एंड ऑफ कोर्स डेटा गवर्नेंस एज वेल। और साथ साथ ऑब्जेक्टिव तो ये होता है इंडस्ट्री का, एज इंडिविजुअल भी, एज एन इंडस्ट्री, एज अ बैंक एज वेल, कि इट हैज़ टू बी डेटा ड्रिवन गवर्नेंस। डिसीजन लेना होता है, चीज़ें ट्रांसपेरेंट होनी चाहिए, डेटा की कंसिस्टेंसी होनी चाहिए, क्वालिटी होनी चाहिए, क्विक हो, सिंगल क्लिक पे हो, डैशबोर्डिंग हो, पावर BI पे हो, दिस एंड दैट। बट क्या बाय डिज़ाइन हमने चीज़ों को ठीक किया हुआ है? जो मैंने 4-5 चीज़ें मेंशन की, अगर वहाँ ठीक नहीं होगा तो आप सिंगल क्लिक के आधे क्लिक पे भी कुछ नहीं आने वाला, और अगर कुछ आने वाला भी होगा तो भी कोई डिसीजन नहीं होगा इस हवाले से। दैट्स माय रिस्पॉन्स।
Perfect. Before proceed further, let me ask a question to the.
There's one
Sorry.
comment.
Can I just add to
Yeah, sure,
what Kashif साहब mentioned? आपने IT governance की बात की and should not report to CIO, but उसमें implication ये है कि I may have been suggesting that data management is part of the IT function, etc. It's absolutely not. The CDO, in this case, Chief Data Officer, in my perspective, should report to the CEO just like the Chief Digital Officer or the head of retail banking or anyone else, because it is a bank-wide. So, IT is not responsible for data management. IT is the custodian of data. And when I say it's not responsible for data management, that means in the context of data management as we are talking about here, it's not to do with database management and systems management and all that. Wo separate hai. That is definitely IT's responsibility, but not in the context of organization-wide a data strategy and data management.
Perfect. So just take a quick survey. यहाँ पे कितने लोग ऐसे हैं जो कि बैंकिंग सेक्टर से हैं? Please raise. So it's a good strand because data की governance and data के बारे में banking का perception is a different with the other industry. So the rest is the other ones. कितनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऐसी है, अब ये बैंकर्स के साथ सवाल नहीं है, जो ये एक्सपेक्ट करती है या ये समझती है कि उनकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का कल्चर इज अ डेटा ड्रिवन कल्चर? या तो सर मुझे
मतलब you can raise, don't be afraid.
just
नहीं आप क्यों फिक्र क्यों कर रहे हैं? It's probably a very well informed audience.
Exactly. So data driven culture, ये सवाल इसलिए था क्योंकि जो अब तक हमने सुना है, जब तक आपको ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं होगी कि व्हाट इज़ डेटा और कहाँ हम इसे इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं, वी कैन नॉट क्रिएट और प्रोड्यूस एनी कल्चर इन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. डेटा इज़ एवरीवेयर. और अगर हम ये समझते हैं कि हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस में डेटा ड्रिवन कल्चर्स होना चाहिए, डेटा ड्रिवन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होनी चाहिए, तो उसके लिए सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ जो बात हुई है कि डेटा की डेफिनेशन के ऊपर और रेलिवेंस डेटा के ऊपर जो है नॉलेज होना बहुत क्वेश्चन जो है इसी से रेलिवेंट है सर। हमने वी टॉक अबाउट द डेटा स्ट्रैटेजीज, कल्चर, ट्रांसपेरेंसीज एंड गवर्नेंस। चूँकि आप टेक्निकल बैकग्राउंड हैं तो आप सर जस्ट add this thing that what are the latest data management trends in financial sector nowadays? My question को थोड़ा सा मैं और भी कर देता हूँ कि जो एक सवाल होता है कि क्या हम आज भी पुराने दौर के पुरानी तरह के जो डेटा के ट्रेडिशंस थे, जो एक इनहेरिटेड होता है कि जी बैंकर्स आर जो है वो कभी भी ज़्यादा मैच्योर नहीं होते, जो चली आ रही होती है स्टेट बैंक की रेगुलेटरीज एंड रेगुलेशंस होते हैं उसी को फॉलो कर रहे होते हैं, स्ट्रिक्ट कंप्लाइंस होते हैं, दे आर नॉट ओपन टू टेक द चैलेंजेस। तो क्या आज फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर्स जो है व्हाट आर द लेटेस्ट ट्रेंड्स इन द फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर्स?
Okay, addressing to your first part of the question, I think financial sector has really grown from the perspective of technology. Data के हवाले से I think three of us, I'll say two, third is a kind of a mix and match. They're grown over the couple of years, all right? And now I think for National Bank, I would say their objective would be their perspective to have a data governance kind of a platform and where they can increase their revenue. From Bank of Punjab would be the same case. But for others, I think from fintechs and from other like EasyPaisa, Dananot, their bread and butter is revenue. They constructed a bank to make revenue out of it. So is the case for others. But in a national bank case, they are more like a national owned bank. So they are more like a borrower than making money out of, streamlined business, if I'm correct. But then when you talk about trends, I think it's all driven by each individual bank. What are their objectives, first of all, and KPIs? Objective is different than your KPIs. KPIs could be managed through your insight of the customer. That is very important. One customer from the managed perspective, I think if they understand where the customer stands now, and they can predict by their behavior that in 6 months, maybe a year, what other product he would buy or what his trend would change. I think that's human behavior as well. So that is one objective. Secondly, I think all 5 of us would agree that data utilization in Pakistan is not even yet 50%. True. We are doing more like a static data, reporting, keeping data for historic history in the bank case, but are we doing predictive analysis? Are we doing real-time data? I don't think so. That is what the data is all about. Now and past, I can see. But the important thing is, can we predict ourselves for future? Are we ready? What churn, what business, what new idea, what revenue streamlines can we create from the current data we have? That is important. And what kind of structured data do we have? I'll be a more layman. कि हमारा डेटा उस काबिल भी है कि उसके ऊपर हम बैठ के काम कर सकें. Dumping data is one thing, but actual use of that data is another thing. So I think all of us would agree that we might not be utilizing half of our data. And those data are actually computing and lying in an infrastructure which costs million. आप स्टोरेज ऐड करते जाते हैं यार डेटा ज़ाया नहीं होना चाहिए, बट उस स्टोरेज की कॉस्ट है. Unfortunately, they can't go to the cloud, so where do they keep it? So that is my concern, I think, from layman and from the industry perspective, that I think all that data needs to be utilized in a proper way so that the end beneficiary is their customer. Internally, तो ये manage कर ही लेंगे. If a business wants to report कि अच्छा उनकी कितनी चीज़ें हुई, I don't think so they have an issue with that. That can be even managed on an Excel sheet. But from 360 perspective, are they ready or they want to be ready?
Okay. ये एक नई ट्रेंड, मतलब एक नई चीज़ आपने दे दी है कि वी आर नॉट यूजिंग 50% ऑफ द डेटा. इस सवाल को हम अगर टाइम बचता है तो हम दोबारा से रिपीट करेंगे, बिकॉज अपेरेंटली आई डू एग्री बट नॉट फॉर द बैंकिंग सेक्टर. Maybe it's true with the respect to the FMCGs and the distribution side and other thing, because we've been doing and analyzing so many things. आप Google को उठा के देख लें, वो आपके ट्रेंड्स बता देता है. Facebook को उठा के दे दें, वो आपकी सारी चीज़ें बता देता है, कहाँ गए, क्या प्रेफरेंसेस हैं आपकी. इवन द बैंकर्स आर कि अगर आपने कोई चीज़ खरीदी है तो नेक्स्ट टाइम उसी के एड्स आपके पास आ रहे होते हैं. तो वी कैन डिस्कस फर्दर. मैं चाहूँगा कि अमीन साहब, इमरान साहब, आप इसके ऊपर थोड़ा सा कॉमेंट करें. 50% इज़ अ बिग नंबर सर.
I would have to have a debate now. It should be interesting.
Let's finish the last question and then come back to this one. Azim sir, you have talked about the fintechs ones. Sir, मैंने आपसे मुश्किल सवाल इसलिए करना है क्योंकि ये थोड़ा सा हटके होगा. We all know the fintechs are coming and coming very aggressively in the market. और काफ़ी अच्छा काम भी कर रहे हैं. So how is fintech disrupting financial sector in emerging market, especially in the banking one? और बैंक्स क्यों इतने काबिल नहीं है कि वो ये काम कर सके? मैं इस सवाल को थोड़ा सा और मुश्किल कर देता हूँ.
आई थिंक बैंक्स तो काबिल हैं डेफिनेटली, मैं ये नहीं कहता कि वो काबिल नहीं हैं, बट एज सेट के द डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेस इज़ एक्चुअली टारगेटेड टूवर्ड्स अ डिफरेंट डायरेक्शन ऑल टुगेदर. एंड मे बी डेटा की क्या जो स्ट्रैटेजी, जैसे हमारी ये बात हुई कि हर कंपनी की कोई डेटा स्ट्रैटेजी होनी चाहिए, उसमें कोई चीफ डेटा ऑफिसर होना चाहिए, and then there has to be a business rationale as to how to use that data. वो भी पहले से कहीं पर कुछ ना कुछ डिफ़ाइन होना चाहिए, जिसकी रीअलाइनमेंट भी हर साल होनी चाहिए मे बी. इसलिए बैंक्स जो हैं वो अपने दूसरे जो भी बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट काम शायद कर रहे होंगे, तो वो इन डायरेक्शंस के ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा फोकस्ड नहीं है मे बी. बट फिनटेक्स आर हेयर टू डिस्टर्ब बैंक्स, सो दे विल डू एवरीथिंग विच इज़ डिफरेंट फ्रॉम बैंक्स. ये सारी दुनिया में ग्लोबल ट्रेंड है. इंटरनेशनल रेमिटेंसेस को आप उठा लें, लैंडिंग को आप उठा लें, पेमेंट्स को उठा लें. सो फिनटेक्स आर मेकिंग ह्यूज चेंज इन द होल कस्टमर एक्सपीरियंस, और दे आर एक्चुअली यूजिंग डेटा वेरी एफिशिएंटली. पाकिस्तान में अगर हम लेट्स से कंज्यूमर माइक्रो लेंडिंग की बात करें, देयर आर फिनटेक्स हु आर एक्चुअली ऑफरिंग यू माइक्रो लोन्स थ्रू मोबाइल फ़ोन, मोबाइल ऐप्स. आप उसमें एप्लीकेशन डालते हैं, वो आपका बिहेवियर, आपका डेटा कलेक्ट करते हैं, आपके डिफरेंट सोर्सेज जहाँ जहाँ उनके पास एक्सेस है वहाँ से आपकी तमाम कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स और आपके बिहेवियर को चेक करते हैं, एंड देन दे ऑफर यू अ लोन. सिमिलरली अब एक और फिनटेक आई थिंक उड़ान के नाम से, वो कमेटी का एक कॉन्सेप्ट लेकर आ रहे हैं, वेयर दे क्वालिफाई यू बेस्ड ऑन योर यूजेज ऑफ एप्स, डिफरेंट एप्स. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आप व्हाट्सएप बहुत ज़्यादा यूज़ करते हैं और रात को भी यूज़ कर रहे हैं तो उसकी भी एक सर्टन स्कोरिंग है, और अगर दिन में यूज़ कर रहे हैं तो उसकी भी एक सर्टन स्कोरिंग है. द होल पर्पस इज़ टू एक्चुअली रिड्यूस द रिस्क ऑफ लैंडिंग, गिव यू अ एक्सलेंट एक्सपीरियंस एंड अ result in a very shorter period of time, whereby if you apply for a loan in a bank, it takes ages to maybe get an approval. So banks are actually working towards that direction, but fintechs are already there. So it's now the time is that fintechs should scale. Similarly, एक fintech है वो B2B space में काम कर रहा है. They are trying to connect the ERP systems of various organizations with the bank. So this whole process takes a lot of efforts in terms of कि अगर जी SAP लगा हुआ है तो क्या करना है, Oracle Financial लगा हुआ है तो क्या करना है, और उस केस में अगर कोई इनवॉइसेस प्रेजेंट करनी है, पेमेंट्स को कलेक्ट करना है, तो उस सारे प्रोसेस में they have already started working, right? They are having a lot of success in that area. So I believe that fintechs will definitely grow, and they are doing an excellent job right now. Their usage of data is also very good. So they have already collected a lot of data, and they are using it very efficiently to make decisions about various things that they do. Or payments will change the way that we are doing payments right now. This will definitely change. This we have been talking about since last many years. जो चेंज आई थी मेनली एक चीज़ ने जिसको कैटलिस्ट की भी बात हुई थी, वो 2020 में कोविड था, जब बैंक्स ब्रांचेस बंद हो गई एंड पीपल आर अनएबल टू मेक पेमेंट्स. सो वेरियस ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैव स्टार्टेड थिंकिंग ऑफ गोइंग डिजिटल, एंड वी हैव सीन अ लॉट ऑफ अपटेक इन डिजिटल पेमेंट सो फार. फिनटेक्स इस एरिया में भी काम कर रहे हैं कि जहाँ पे वो देखते हैं कि एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जो कि एक ट्रेडिशनल मॉडल से बैंक के थ्रू या अपने काउंटर्स के ऊपर पेमेंट ले रही थी, उसको जाके वो डिजिटाइज कर रहे हैं कि हम आपको सोल्यूशन देते हैं विच यू कैन डिप्लॉय एट योर बैक एंड, which will automate your payments, and then this payment can be collected through any of the banking channel or branches that we have. So I believe कि ये काम शायद बैंक्स नहीं कर सकते, इसलिए कि वो इतने ज़्यादा आई वुड से डेप्थ में जाके कस्टमर की प्रॉब्लम को अंडरस्टैंड करने की कोशिश नहीं करते हैं. their target is to either take deposit or give loans. So this target is already achieved for them. So maybe this kind of integrations will bring a lot of value to the whole industry. And I believe this industry and the banks have to do something different to actually catch these fintechs in future.
Just wanted to ask one more thing. We are talking about the people, process and technologies. When we talk about the fintech part, they have people and they have technologies. But processes ke liye they are heavily dependent on the banks, because when we talk about the process, that means data. So fintech and bank is a strong collaboration. So
the banks they are actually they have a certain governance cycle in place. They have a regulator, and like we have just discussed, there is a governance piece as well. So maybe at time governance would say कि जी ये सारा data आप collect ही नहीं कर सकते customer से, ये तो बड़ा गलत काम हो रहा है. तो ये भी हो जाता है. I'm sorry, but this is how. So limitations are there. So for fintechs there is no limitation. So they can collect aggressively from the customer, and then they can use this data effectively for their own decision making. The only other issue that fintechs are facing is partnering with the banks. So this partnership is creating a lot of challenges right now. Since we have been talking to almost every other fintech is connected to OneLink. So whenever they came in, we proposed them to connect to any bank of their choice. So generally speaking, the banks are very reluctant to take on board any of the fintechs. So there are 2-3 banks who are aggressively taking up fintechs, and they are giving them access to the financial sector, and obviously OneLink also take part into those. So the banks, what I would say is, rather than having a fear कि कहीं पे grow करके बहुत ज़्यादा आगे चले जाएंगे, उससे ज़्यादा बेहतर ये है कि उन्हें partner करें and then grow together. That's the best part of it.
Thank you, sir. One last, as a closing remarks from first the closing, and then we'll ask for the questions. Sir, please.
So there's a couple of points, but I'll pick one. शायद आपने कहा था question है, should banks be data driven? ठीक है. Banks are private enterprises mostly. National Bank is a little different, but most are private enterprises. तो हम कैसे कह सकते हैं कि आप should be data driven जब उनको उसमें value दिख ही नहीं रही है और regulation नहीं है कि आप data driven हों, तो हमारा क्या हक होता है किसी को बोलें कि should be data driven?
Okay, right.
Issue ये है, that's the fundamental problem, is value नहीं दिख रही है. और जो digitization हो रहा है, for example biometric verification, ये सब regulation के through हो रही है. Now the regulator can only go so far as to mandate what level of digitization or data management or data driven private enterprise, which is a bank, but they are operating under a license. It's a privilege, it's not a right, so they can mandate to a certain extent, but the regulator micromanage to nahi karega. And then one day that bank will slowly, one day it'll wake up and find out that, listen, where are we today when we were 10-15 years ago? So we have to look at this. कभी कभी आपको should करना चाहिए. Should क्यों करें वो बैंक? ये बैंक है बैंक A, it's a private bank, उनको जो करना है करें. उनकी कस्टमर को सहूलत होगी, more services offer कर सकेंगे, timely information दे सकेंगे, proactively उनको services offer कर सकेंगे, मगर उनको ये mandate तो नहीं है करने का. उनके shareholders से पूछना होगा, shareholders को पूछना होगा, भाई why aren't you doing all this? हमारा क्या हक होता है कि हम किसी को बोलें private enterprise को कि आप should enterprise. Yes, we'd like them to be because we want the services from them कि हमारे को actively engage करें. But उसके aside from that, हमारा हक नहीं होता इनको कहने के कि should data they be data driven.
Thank you, sir. Imran.
All right. So why do we want to use data? So in my view, we want to use data to do two things. One is, for any business, the customer should be, or must be the center of that business. If you look at all the big techs, all of them almost focused on their customer. So you look at their vision and their strategy. 10 years ago, Google's and Amazon's and Facebook and you name it, they put their strategy as customer to be at the center. So what we want to do with this, we want to serve the customer better. To serve the customer better, we need to know the customer better. So to know the customer better, we need to pick up all the data which the customer is giving us when they are using my services or other people's services, to collate that data and to make it useful. So this answers the question why I need my data, so that I am able to serve my customer better in terms of its experience and in terms of the services that I give them. It will create stickiness, it will create more business, it will bring more business to me. So that is one. Second is, the second part is my own operations or my own functions. If I look at the data and I am able to know all the data, I can do things more efficiently. I can imply or I can, let's say, execute new technologies to make my operations efficient. For example, I can make use of AI. I can make use of robotic process automation. And I can reduce my costs by being more efficient. Now, to enable those technologies, I need to have structured data. So one of the colleagues talked about structured data, basically converting your unstructured data into structured, so that these technologies are able to make use of that data to give you insights so you can be more efficient. You can convert repetitive actions or tasks, automate them, and then move on to where it makes sense. So these two areas, if we are able to focus, we probably will be in a better place.
Thank you, Marcel. So what's your take?
Closing remarks, right?
Closing, yes.
It has to be data-driven governance, data-driven decision-making, but with a strong business case. It has to enable business, it has to create value to the business. That's it.
Right, thank you.
Okay, I think I'll just put 3 words out of data. I think what you can do with data is connect, unify, and predict. All of us are connected, but are we unified? I don't think so. Are we predicting? I don't think so.
All right, perfect, sir.
I think my take is that wherever a bank doesn't want to do anything specific, or if any company doesn't want to do want to take a plunge, rather than maybe having a fear whether they will fail or pass, it's better to have a partner in place who should be able to doing something similar for them, and then maybe give them a revenue share and create a value for everybody, rather than just be a sitting duck and doing nothing.
Thank you, everyone. Although I have made closing remarks, but I don't think so I have liberty to exchange my view in detail. एक छोटी सी चीज़ कि बहुत जो डिस्कशंस हुआ उस पर हमने डेटा के बारे में बात की. मैं डेटा को रिजेंबल करूँगा मोती से. तो आई एम श्योर कि जो मोती फॉर्म होता है, चाहे वो मिथ है या एक्चुअल है, आप सबको पता होगा. एक शेर है जिगर मुरादाबादी का, मेरा फेवरेट. आंसू तो बहुत से हैं आँखों में जिगर लेकिन, आंसू तो बहुत से हैं आँखों में जिगर लेकिन, बन जाए सो मोती है बह जाए तो दाना है. So data is everywhere. It's up to us that how we can use this data. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen.